Portugal permanent residency or Portuguese citizenship, which one do you actually need? Well, the answer isn't as obvious as it seems, and choosing wrong could close doors that you didn't even know were open. In fact, there are 9 critical differences between the two, and one of them can change what's possible for you far beyond the borders of Portugal. Let's break them down one by one. So, for starters, here's the fundamental difference between the two. Permanent residency gives you the right to live in Portugal indefinitely. Citizenship equals full EU membership, a Portuguese passport, and political rights. Permanent residency stabilizes your life in Portugal, but only in Portugal, whereas citizenship upgrades you to full EU freedom of movement across 31 countries. The two statuses are not equivalent at all. Let me walk you through the other reasons so we can discover exactly how. First up, it's where you can live and work. So permanent residence gives you full rights to live and work only in Portugal. But if you want to move to Spain, France, or Greece, then you're going to need to get their own residence permit and start from scratch. But Portuguese citizenship lets you live, work, and study anywhere in the EU, the EEA, and Switzerland. No permits, no visas needed. 31 countries, that is a lot of freedom. So in short, PR equals Portugal only, but citizenship equals 31 countries across Europe. Next up, we've got travel outside Europe. As a permanent resident of Portugal, you can travel in the Schengen area 90 out of every 180 days. But beyond that, it's your original passport that determines where you can go. And when you travel, you are going to be in the non-EU immigration queues at every European airport, which can be a real hassle when it gets busy. On the other hand, if you have Portuguese citizenship, you get a passport with visa-free access to around 189 countries. US, Canada, Japan, Australia, easy entry pretty much everywhere. And an added bonus, you can use the EU citizen lanes at airports across Europe. And trust me, as somebody who's had both statuses, that's the difference between a 5-minute queue and sometimes waiting for over an hour. After a long flight, that EU lane is really worth a lot. So in short, it's your original passport that rules your travel when you're a permanent resident. But when you're a citizen, you get the Portuguese passport, which rewrites the entire rulebook. Next up, let's look at the political rights between the two statuses. So, as a permanent resident of Portugal, you still don't have the chance to vote in national elections, although you can vote in most local and regional ones. On the other hand, once you become a citizen, you have full uninhibited voting rights, local, national, regional, and the European Parliament. And you can even stand for office, whether that's in Portugal for the Parliament or for the European Parliament itself. So, in short, permanent residents live under the laws, but citizens can help to write them. Now let's look at permanence and absence rules. So permanent residency, it has that name, but how permanent is it really? Well, here's the catch. If you're absent for more than 24 consecutive months or 30 months non-consecutively in any 3-year period, you risk losing your Portuguese permanent residency status. And you have to renew your residence card every 10 years. But in contrast to this, once you're a citizen, this is a lifelong status that doesn't have any expiry date. It also doesn't have any minimum stay requirements. You can live in any other country for decades and still keep it, just as many native-born Portuguese do. In short, permanent residency still ties you physically to Portugal, but it's only citizenship that lets you roam across Europe and across the world. Now, next up, we've got everyday life in Portugal. So this is where the two statuses are actually broadly similar. They both give you access to public health care via the SNS, social security, education in Portugal, and things like banking, contracts, business opportunities, and so on. So while you're inside Portugal, your day-to-day experience is nearly identical, but the differences between the two really show up when you want to leave the country, either to live elsewhere in Europe or travel globally. Another key difference is education across Europe, specifically university access and tuition fees. As a permanent resident in Portugal, you can access education pretty much on the same terms as Portuguese nationals. But if you want to study in another EU country, then you're going to pay international fees. Once you're a citizen, you qualify for EU citizen tuition rates anywhere in the EU. And let me tell you, as someone who's done it, these can be a whole lot cheaper. I did my master's degree in Belgium as an EU citizen, and I paid, I think it was around 500 euros for the full course. But non-EU students in the same program had to pay over 5,000 euros. So that's a 10 times difference for the exact same degree, just because of your citizenship status. And if you're a family with kids approaching university age or anyone considering doing postgraduate study, then this benefit alone can really justify going ahead and making the push for citizenship. So when it comes to family and the next generation, As a permanent resident, you can still benefit from family reunification in the EU, but you can't automatically pass your permanent resident status to your children. On the other hand, when you're a citizen, your children can usually acquire Portuguese nationality as well after some years, and according to meeting some conditions. There may also be easier routes to residence or citizenship for your spouse. So, in short, permanent residency secures your life as an individual, but citizenship can actually change and improve your whole family's trajectory. Now, the next benefit is really interesting, and it's about consular protection when traveling around the world. As a permanent resident of Portugal, you still have to rely on your original country's embassy for help overseas. So that's the one where your passport comes from. But as a citizen of Portugal, which also makes you an EU citizen, if you find yourself in a country where Portugal doesn't have any consular presence, then you can actually seek help from any other EU member states, embassy, or consulate. So that's basically 27 EU countries that have your back anywhere in the world. And that's a safety net that only comes with EU citizenship. Some people ask me about dual nationality and whether you can keep your original passport. And as a permanent resident, this question is not relevant at all because you always maintain your original nationality. But if you want to become a Portuguese citizen, keep in mind that from Portugal's side, it allows dual citizenship in most cases. So, depending on your original nationality, for most people, it's not a case of either or, but it's a case of both. Now, let's take a quick look at the timing and the upcoming changes that have been proposed for the citizenship law. So, previously, you needed 5 years of temporary residency to apply for Portuguese citizenship. And that was also the case for permanent residency as well. So they kind of ran in parallel. But a couple of months ago, there was a proposal put into Parliament to increase this to 10 years for most applicants and 7 years for some nationals of the Portuguese-speaking community, like Brazil and Angola, for example. This is still going through Parliament, and I do have another video talking about the latest updates on that. But the benefits of citizenship do stay the same. The only thing that's really changing is how long you actually have to wait to apply for it. Now and before, many people decide to go for permanent residency first as a stepping stone so they can secure their rights to live in Portugal for longer, which I think is an especially smart idea, especially when these rules are in flux and potentially tightening up. So which one do you actually need? Well, you should choose permanent residency in the following situations. If you're focused specifically on life in Portugal, and for some reason, if you can't hold dual nationality, perhaps because your original country doesn't allow it, and if for some reason you're not ready for citizenship just yet. PR is stable and secure, and it gives you almost everything you need as long as you're still based in Portugal. But I recommend working towards citizenship if you want the following benefits: the freedom to live anywhere in 31 European countries, including Switzerland, a top-tier global passport, like it's literally one of the best, full political rights, not just in Portugal, but also in the EU itself, access to EU tuition rates for you and your children, and generational benefits for your whole family. So really, in some senses, the question isn't which one is better, but it's which one is the best fit for your specific plan and your objectives. All right, so that concludes our side-by-side comparison of Portugal permanent residency versus Portuguese citizenship. And if this cleared things up for you, please feel free to hit like and subscribe to the channel for more practical content on moving to Europe for the long term. And feel free to drop a comment below and tell me, are you aiming for permanent residency, citizenship, or would you like to have both? What's your timeline? And is this purely a practical thing for you, or does becoming Portuguese carry any emotional weight? It does for me. I'm genuinely curious, as everyone's journey is different. And for regular updates on EU immigration changes, subscribe to the Digital Emigre newsletter. You can find the link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.